It's election time, which means the media gets to find out how effective its bias was. It's the NewsBusters podcast. I'm Tim Graham, executive editor of NewsBusters. With me today, MRC Business Associate Editor Joseph Vazquez, and our guest returning to the show today, Bongino Report content manager and Soros researcher extraordinaire, Matt Palumbo. Welcome, Matt.
Yeah, it's good to be back on. It's that time of the year again.
No kidding.
At Matt Palumbo 12. I don't know who the other 11 are, but Matt has a new book.
I had the original Matt Palumbo handle like 10 years ago, and then I deleted Twitter thinking I would never use it again. And then another Matt Palumbo, who was like a Steve Bannon confidant, took the original Matt Palumbo moniker. So now I'm 12. But I don't know why I skipped the other 11, no.
You're the 12th, but you're the original.
Exactly, both.
Well, as far as Soros is concerned, you're Pope Matt Palumbo the 12th. But you have a new book out called The Heir, Inside the Not-So-Secret Network of Alex Soros. I'd like to apologize at the top of this interview, since it is November. We did not dress up in Halloween costumes like Vince Colonnese was Gandalf, I think.
Yep.
That was pretty legit.
But let's start with the big picture, Soros 2.0, and this whole notion of, you suggest Alexander has already been in charge of some of the Soros machine.
Yeah, so going back to 2015, or actually, no, I'll just start with when Alex took over. So that was June of 2023. I remember it vividly because I predicted he would become the successor. Like that, I was on a show, I think that day, and someone asked, like, who do you think would take over if George stepped down? And I said Alex, and it was memorable as my only ever correct political prediction. So I was like, I felt very fulfilled that day. But as it turns out, he was chairman of the board from December of the prior year of 2022. And if you go back to 2015, that is when he basically took over European operations, at least according to his narration and interviews he's done since taking over. So a lot of the book is in Eastern Europe on activities there where there's a lot of Soros documentation. And a lot of it was stuff that I had already known about to some degree. And now, with the additional information of Alex's involvement, have been able to locate, okay, here's where Alex ties in and here's where we can prove there was involvement. And I think he was probably outsized influence from him, or at least that's what I argue. Then also in 2022, he took over Democracy PAC, and that's what was making headlines for funding all of these crazy rogue on crime DAs. One of the things I learned from Joe's reporting was, and this was, I think, the craziest fun fact in the chapter, was that Alex has run Alex Soros-backed DAs against George Soros-backed DAs for not being liberal enough. So that's where we're at with the problem. And to be fair, I mean, Kim Ogg was not really that left-wing compared to all the other George Soros DAs. So I guess he did primary the most moderate one, but it is still amazing that a Soros-funded person under any circumstances could not be liberal enough for Alex Soros.
You know what's amazing to me, like in researching Alex, is I know that he doesn't have the kind of behind, the curtain veil to pull from your first book on George Soros. He doesn't have the behind the veil expertise that his father has. He's very much more vocal about his positions, a lot more like extreme, off the rails. I mean, you could see his social media handles. He's not shy about letting people know where he stands on things. In our research, you and I both have looked into this together. In your perspective, what do you think makes Alex a figure that the American people should be more concerned about in conjunction with his father? Like, what did he have to do in order to convince his God complex adult father that he is capable of taking the Open Society Foundations into the next decade, into the next set of decades, so to speak?
He has to convince his father that the apple didn't fall far from the tree. And, we've seen how he speaks publicly, and he's not a Shakespearean orator, to put it very mildly. No. So he didn't pick him for that reason. It had to have been ideological. And Alex portrays himself as a more moderate version of his father, which I think every human being is a more moderate version of George Soros, if you're going to compare the two. So that wouldn't be saying much if it was true, but it seems very unlikely that after 50 plus years of far left activism, George Soros decided, all right, I'll leave this to the guy who's the center of the road kind of guy. It's very unlikely. And, Alex will try to take a much more let's say a centrist position on Israel, do a sort of two-state solution, rhetoric, condemn October 7th, which the fact that that's even considered a centrist position on the left, again, tells you quite a bit about where we are. But he still, they still have that open society university network. And to this day, they are still partnered with Al-Quds University, which has, holidays dedicated to so-called Palestinian martyrs who've murdered innocent Jewish people. Palestinian Islamic Jihad has held rallies there, and professors have taken part in them. And they continue being part of that network. And we also know that the Columbia protests were funded by Soros groups, or groups that were funded by, groups that were funded by Soros, or funded by, the sort of funding groups that fund other groups category. But they got Soros money. And granted, the most recent data we have in that is 2023. But Alex probably was in charge of the OSF that full year anyway, just by virtue of the fact of him running, being chairman of the board. I think the June date was kind of arbitrary, and he was already running it. That's just when they announced it. So he was still funding those groups. The last year we have data, which is his first year officially running it, and there's been no public statements made condemning those groups or saying they're going to defund them. All they do is. And they did this recently in response to Trump saying they were funding violent groups. They just try to claim they couldn't know any better. Like their exact phrasing was, well, we haven't knowingly funded violent groups. And I'm thinking, well, if we know, then how do you not know? It's just the word knowingly does all the heavy lifting there. They want plausible deniability. And that's always their excuse is, well, we give them the money. We don't dictate what they do with it. Well, sure. I mean, if I give money to a political cause, I'm not behind the scenes all the time going, all right, knock on that door, talk to this guy. But it's an endorsement of what they believe. So it's just, they're very dishonest people, as Joe and I have learned when interacting with them. And I will have more stories there, I'm sure.
To your point, Alec.
Yeah.
To your point, Matt. Sorry. You had said something for our previous report that, just for everyone to know, me and Matt worked together on an MRC special report at the beginning of the year called Eco Kingpins. It was about how George and Alex were financing the global climate change movement. And one of the things that Matt said was so crucial. I actually mentioned it to Ryan Morrow. He thought it was brilliant. And just to reiterate it for our audience, you had said that, this plausible deniability scheme that the Open Society Foundations engages in, they fund these radical groups, they go do X, and then they say, whoa, we didn't know that they were going to do that or whatever. Yeah. It's like what you said. He said, you cannot give money to an arsonist, then feign surprise when that arsonist starts fires.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when you see a drug addict in the streets, be like, here's $20. Promise you won't buy drugs. It's just like, what's going to happen. Come on. And you've been doing it for 2 or 3 decades, so I'm pretty sure you could have checked your work anywhere. I don't know, Alex, even when it comes to groups like Sunrise blocking highways, like he's publicly complained about that happening, and he says it as if he has no control over the funding himself. It's just bizarre, the excuses. Like he acts like he's this reluctant figurehead who just... oh, they're just spending my money on this stuff, and I somehow don't have veto power over it. It's complete nonsense. And that's the whole point of this climate groups, too. It's not really climate. That's just the Trojan horse. It's that every left-wing group has an anchor issue, and then this weird menu, this weird portfolio of other left-wing groups that to be on the left, you have to have every single one of those positions. And they never make any sense. It's like, all right, we're pro-Palestine, also gay people and trannies, higher minimum wage, unions, and there's no logical reason you need to take every single one of those stances. Like you'd think there'd be one person who's like, I'll do that minus the minimum wage or minus X, Y, and Z. But for some reason, it's 100% of them all the time. And it's because they're all the same group. They just pick a different front issue. And then you also have to believe all the other ones. But, you and I had documented, and you did more work on this one than I did by quite a bit, the environmental spending since Alex took over. And it's $438 million he authorized. In all the years we have available data when George was running the show, and the years prior, it was, I think, 78 million or so.
178 or something like that. Yeah.
I actually got to the million. I got it.
It's beyond puzzling to me that a group that calls themselves the Open Society Foundations, for one, on the climate, there's no debate on the climate. They don't allow a debate. There's no democracy on the climate. These people are climate authoritarians. They're like, you will either accept, we are going to block the highways. Is that an open society move? To block the highways and demand the cops drag you out of the road? But also just mind-boggling that somebody who calls themselves the Open Society Foundations backs Islamists.
Yeah.
What on earth? I'm for Sharia law and an open society.
Yeah, like
I'm for Hamas and an open society.
Is it possible to put those two things in the same sentence?
Well, they hate civilization. They hate progress. They hate anything that reminds them of it. They hate their fathers. Like it's literally everything good they hate, and they will take it out on us in any way possible. And that is the thing you notice with the pro-Palestine protests. Like it's also a front just for anti-Americanism as a whole, in that there's no even far right anti-Israel people that join those protests. It's only far left people, and it's because they just want it to be an excuse for something else. I mean, as they were doing this, there was other genocides going on in the world that were killing far more people. And I should add, terms for which the term genocide is actually appropriate. This is a war we have in, all over Africa. There's pretty much a genocide going on any day of the week. And if there's no tie in there where you can make it anti-American, they don't care at all.
Well, we're actually finding today that Nigeria is coming up because Trump talked about it in his interview with 60 Minutes. And then suddenly they're all like, well, I guess Trump's alleging there's a Christian killing in Nigeria, and the president of Nigeria says we don't do that. I mean, it's the weirdest thing where it's like, could you at least acknowledge the reality documented by the State Department or whichever international organization you want that there's massive killing of Christians in Sudan, in Nigeria? These are actual things. And when you run around and constantly scream the word genocide in Gaza, it's like, excuse me, are you basically saying that the lives of Christians in Nigeria are worth less? I mean, this is always kind of a problem we've had about journalism, right? Yeah. Is that lives in Africa never seem to matter as much.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because the current president of the Open Society Foundation's Benifer Naroji, I think her name is. I mean, I'm probably butchering the name.
A Star Wars name. You can just make it
exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, she had come out, I think it was an NPR thing that she was on, and that she explicitly condemned Israel for perpetuating genocide. And the thing is, first of all, it's like the same thing that the left does with the word Nazism. They throw Nazi at everything, and then it cheapens the meaning of the word. I mean, so when you look at, the Open Society Foundations, they're constantly railing against Israel, railing against what they're doing, trying to make them look like that they're guilty of apartheid and all these other things. And then the irony is that if you call that out, if you criticize the Open Society Foundations or Soros writ large, you're called an anti-Semite.
Yeah, that's.
Figure that one out. And this is just me. I'm probably, about as pro-Israel as it gets, right?
You are.
Pro-Israel as it gets. And the thing is, and people have characterized Soros, like Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law School professor emeritus, he had come out and said that no one has done anything to destroy Israel's image in the world than George Soros. No one has done more to do that than George Soros. So, the fact that Soros still manages to maintain this kind of this wall of media protection around him, that anyone who comes against him is automatically his anti-Semite, is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
Well, he also funds all the NGO networks, all the human rights groups are all ideologically compromised, and that you will remember, and a lot of these were Soros-funded groups, the consensus pretty much everywhere was that by the end of this year, there was going to be a famine in Gaza, or there was a famine in Gaza that was going to kill hundreds of thousands of people, including tens of thousands of children. And by the time of the ceasefire that just happened, Hamas's own data had 400 recorded deaths of starvation. Now, obviously, for even a developing or a poor country, 400 deaths is a lot, but it's not a third of the population like they were projecting was going to be dead by year end. And it's every really any cause that has a greater left-wing undertone to it. I mean, climate change is one of those examples where they used to say, well, I mean, every scientific group says it's real. You're going to, certainly one scientist would be incentivized to expose the lie and they would be a hero. And then the second COVID happened, we realized, well, that's not possible because when you're the guy who exposes the lie, you threaten a lot of funding. And then everyone attacks you and discredits you and calls you a lunatic and tries to ruin your life. So, I know the climate thing has never really been convincing to me. It's such a convenient cause where you're going, yeah, there's going to be an apocalypse. It'll be 400 years after I die, but yeah, trust me on this one. It'll happen. The ones who say in 10 years, I at least kind of respect because I know they're going to move the goalpost, but I at least respect them putting it in right in front of you. But if you go back to the UN projections, if you go back to the 1970s, it was 12 years in the future. You go back to the 80s, 12 years in the future. Now it's another 12 years, or I think we're down to a single digit amount now. But it's going to become 12 years again once we hit that threshold. So,
as the Media Research Center documented in a report called Fire and Ice, that's before your time, Joey.
Yeah, that's way before my time.
And of course, the media bias was way before. But in the 1970s, the theory was we were going to all freeze to death. Then the global warming thing really kicked off in 1988 because we had a lot of heat and a drought in the summer of '88. Yeah. When I got married, the grass behind me was all brown, and that was a summer of panic. But yes, we've got footage. We were just pulling it out a couple weeks ago for social media of, Meryl Streep on PBS in 1990 saying, in the next 10 years, it'll be crisis, in a very short time, crisis. And so, we can go back. That's one of the things the media just refused to do is actually say, well, maybe all the predictions haven't been by 2015, we had another one where they were saying basically by 2015, half of Florida is going to be underwater, whatever. These are all things we can easily falsify now. The way that we're doing now with the Gaza famine, they're like, there wasn't a lot of that. And of course, when the ceasefire began, they're like, let's go looking for the emaciated Gazans.
Yeah, exactly.
There weren't many.
No, there weren't.
Yeah, which is good news. Like I know people were saying it's ghoulish.
No one wants that.
Or you're trying to downplay it, and I'm like, but if that's reality, that's reality. And listen, I'm not really much of a foreign policy guy, and that there would be, I don't know, at least starvation, if not outright famine, seemed like common sense because I know that Hamas would get in the way of the shipments. And if you're having a war, you're not producing food. So when I learned that, no, there wasn't this mass famine, I thought, all right, great. Like that's the best news you could possibly have. But apparently for some reason, the people that are pro-Palestinian see this as bad news. I don't get it, man.
Well, it's this, but it's sort of the same thing because our media will take the most anti-Israel groups and present them as the most authoritative. I mean, starting with the whole idea of the Gaza Health Ministry has some estimates for you, and just the whole idea of the United Nations and UNRWA, that they're presented as objective when people who are actually studying this would say these are the least objective people on Israel on the planet.
Oh, absolutely.
They despise Israel, but they're presented as objective.
Yep. And the amazing thing about, Matt pointed it out that, it's not that Soros is necessarily committed to any of these particular causes. He uses them as fronts for what he actually wants to do. Like, for example, the climate change issue. One of the things that me and Matt found out, and I'm going to let you comment on your book, Matt, one of the groups that we profiled in our report was about C40 cities, which is this collective of mayors all across the world dedicated to push like a Green New Deal in their localities. And the Open Society Foundations was actually actively involved with this group to help make this happen, including American cities. Despite the fact that the Green New Deal failed in Congress, the Soros empire was like, okay, so we're going to go institute it from the ground up instead of from the top down. I mean, so, but is it about, fighting climate change? No, it's about instituting some sort of New World Order-ish, regime where people's lives can be regulated to kingdom come on the basis of climate change. It's
The genius of climate change, and the left does this with every issue, is it's an open-ended cause. In that no matter, even if you passed all the right policy, even if we were to say, okay, climate change is real, we have these consequences, and you could pass everything you need to do to get rid of them, which would basically be communism. Like, you'd have to destroy the economy and have no growth in reverse. But even if we did all that, you can still make up consequences to then justify future government action. And that, left-wing groups don't accomplish a goal of an end. Like, there are groups that started to support same-sex marriage that have received more funding since the end of same-sex marriage, since the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage, than before when they were fighting for it. And it's because once they got that goal, then it's just a pivot. Then it's, okay, well, to perpetuate whatever you call it, okay, we'll become a group that is for general tolerance of gay people. And then, so far as you have one anti-gay hate crime per year or two, well, that's the rallying cry, and you raise money around that. And then also we're going to go into schools and mandate they do X, Y, and Z. And then it's the ideology then it's just sort of the next stage. Like, it's just the idea. And now it's like, all right, we claimed all we wanted was marriage. Just kidding. Now you have to teach your kids all this stuff. Like, it never ends.
No, and the thing is, like, the other thing is that it balloons up, and then they add more letters to the alphabet soup of protected groups.
We're going to run out of letters, man.
That's what the plus is at the end of it. LGBTQIA plus.
Yeah, I'll remind you that what the paranoid, quote unquote, far right people were saying was, once you move forward on gay marriage, then you're going to be teaching the 6-year-olds to be transgender. Oh, that didn't happen, did it? It's the slippery slope was there for everyone to see. But, this is one of those areas where, at least even among the young people, certainly among minorities, it's not working for the Democrats. It's not doing well. But let's talk for a minute about possibly Mayor Mamdani. Azra Nomani reported for Fox News that Linda Sarsour, the radical anti-Semitic Islamist, is pledging to hold a Mayor Mamdani accountable if he doesn't do what all the Muslim radicals want him to do. Let's see. I know that the Soros people have put a lot of money behind Muslim political action. How do you think that might play out?
If she's threatening to hold him accountable, I don't know if that means like a suicide bombing or by like verbally, but I don't know. So one of the two, I guess. No. Soros is funding Mamdani through Working Families Party. That's the main organ, is at least my understanding. Joe and I had actually profiled them quite a bit, and they are an attempt to infiltrate the Democratic Party. We'll never really have successful third parties in this country just because it's based, we don't have proportional representation. So within a government, like within Congress, basically having caucuses is the closest thing to a party within a party. But in New York, you can vote for candidates on multiple party lines, meaning, someone can run as a Republican and a conservative, and if you vote as a conservative, it still counts as the bigger party. So there are candidates who want to be on the Working Family Party line, which will give them a boost of a couple points. So to do that, which Mamdani is, you have to agree to a whole host of left-wing things that they want, and their socialist policies, far-left progressive policies. But that's what is supporting Mamdani as well. So he has endorsed all of those things, and will be the furthest left New York City mayor we have. It is incredible because, like, on paper, he has run a great campaign, but it's also like no more impressive than the kid who was running for class president in 8th grade's campaign, because it's pretty easy to campaign on free. Everything's free and better. It's like, oh, okay. I guess, like, I don't know. It's just so juvenile. And not only is it juvenile, it's every single thing he's proposed has failed every other place it's been tried. So I don't know. I feel like the whole concept of democracy is a little flawed, at least in this one case.
Yeah, but the Soros empire likes to use defending democracy quite often. But it's like, what does democracy actually mean to you? Yeah. The funny thing, Matt, and I'll let our viewers in on this. Tim actually tipped me off about a couple of days ago that Patrick Gaspard, who was the former president of the Open Society Foundations, who was a bigwig, considered to be the consummate Soros henchman, then moved to become the president of the Center for American Progress. But due to his lack of fundraising, he was demoted, I think, to distinguished senior fellow or something like that. But he was on with Christian Amanpour, and Amanpour referred to him multiple times as a close confidant of Mamdani. Once I heard that, the red flags went off. I mean, like, it wasn't just about, the Working Families Party, just, the Soros-funded Working Families Party trying to get Zoran Mamdani to run on their ticket. Now you have essentially someone who's directly connected to the Soros family, a close confidant of the George Soros regime, essentially becoming like the brains necessarily behind the Mamdani campaign to begin with. And now, how would, so what does this speak about? Like, what is Soros's end game here, the Soros empire's end game here? Because obviously, if you try to call him, try to call Soros a communist, he'll say, no, I'm not a communist. Look, I fight the Soviet Union. I fight whatever. But
not
he's
really,
willing,
but it's on paper.
Yeah, exactly. So, but meanwhile, he's willing to utilize socialism, right, to serve his own ends. What do you think is the ultimate game here in trying to help Mamdani gain control of arguably the economic center of the world?
They're willing to burn the whole house down to get what they want is really the only way you can explain it. That's actually news to me that he was working with Gaspard. I know Gaspard angled for, I think, Labor Department secretary under Biden and then got some obscure middle of the nowhere ambassadorship. But he was one of the Soros voices that definitely had some kind of influence within the Biden White House as well. And we all saw how that went.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I think that there is a notion here that Mamdani is like an Obama. Now, of course, from the right-wing perspective, it's like, oh, but this guy actually lived in Uganda. This guy, there's better, you got better conspiracy theories going, but this is what she was asking Gaspard, like, talk about how he's like Obama. He's aspirational. I mean, when they talk about the people they like, they use just the gauziest, sunniest language imaginable. Yeah. And that's not just on CNN International, that show, but of course it's also reshown on PBS.
Yep.
No longer with our taxpayer dollars, at least at the moment. But yeah, I mean, I think it underlines the Democratic Party keeps inching further and further to the left, and who is there to provide the money?
It's
a machine you're writing about.
Yeah. So tell us, Matt. Tell us, in researching this book, because I remember you were texting me over again. You said you found something like insane, and you added like another 200 pages or something like that to the book.
The fun never ends.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think was the biggest revelation for you, if you're able to do it? Just tell us what was the biggest revelation in your research on Alex Soros as a person and his political agenda. What do you think is the main message people should get away from this book?
Well, don't be fooled by his appearance and presentation. He is just as cunning as his father. The longest chapter in the book was my investigation of his influence in Albania, which is not a country most people are thinking about, but it's very useful as a case study on how he's able to infiltrate countries. He played a very large role in reforming their entire or overhauling their constitution, their criminal justice system, and basically did so in a way where the Socialist Party has complete institutional control there. 90% of all mayors, NGOs, institutions, etc., are underneath their purview. He calls the Socialist Prime Minister his best friend and his brother, and they shared at least 30 photos together since 2021. Now, their former prime minister before the Socialists took over said that he has flight logs that there was, I think, 140 visits of Alex to Albania over that time period. So the takeaway there as well is, we're always saying that Alex is bragging about his influence. He's flaunting it on social media. But if that's correct, it's, just in that country 4 or 5 times more than we've even seen that he's letting on. So he's probably even more active that he's letting us know. In fact, that's just, I guess, the bare minimum. As for most, it's the most surprising. It's tough to say. Should I be a hack and be like, I guess you'll have to read the book.
There you go. The new book is titled The Heir.
Yes.
Inside the Not So Secret Network of Alex Soros. Matt Palumbo at Matt Palumbo 12. Joey Vazquez at JV3 MRC. Or is there an at in the middle?
That's it.
Okay, JV3 MRC. I'm at Tim J. Graham if you haven't followed me yet. And you got to come to NewsBusters to find out everything we're doing once, twice, 24 times a day. Thanks for listening.